day, dear audience. It's me, Nazanin Mohseni, and welcome back to one another episode of our program on Asri Kabul Media. Today, we are honored to have Mr. Timothy Stuyvesant, the principal of Flowers for the Future School, with us. Mr. Stuyvesant, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. And your work with Flowers for the Future has been life changing for so many girls in Afghanistan. And I truly appreciate the opportunity to discuss your efforts and vision. Given the current challenges in Afghanistan, especially for girls' education, so your role is more important than ever. And today, I'd love to hear about more about what drives you, the challenges you have faced, and the impact you have seen. So let's start by learning a little bit about your journey. So what inspired you to dedicate yourself to this cause?
Well, thank you for having me. I'd like to say that I've been teaching humanities and history almost for 4 decades. And this goes back to my relationship with Afghanistan, goes back actually to April of 2021, when a former colleague of mine called me up and said, would you be interested in connecting with a school in Kabul? And without even hesitating, my answer was, of course, any opportunity for my students to meet with students anywhere around the world, and then especially the relationship that the United States has had with Afghanistan for the past 20 years, it was important for me, for my students, to really know what's going on, and that is the best way to do that is to meet. And when we first met, it was actually, remember, back in 2021, it was all about COVID. And one of the first things that we talked about was, well, what did you do during the lockdown? And I remember the Afghans would say, well, some of us played video games and some of us learned new skills. And we looked at each other going, that's exactly what we were doing. And at that moment, that 10,000-mile difference was gone. And so we started this relationship. And so we started meeting over Zoom. And that was also the new part of this technology, is that there's this opportunity that we're doing right now that we can connect in real time. So I think that was very unique and special about this. What happened? So we just started a book club, and I asked the Afghans if we wanted to understand the Afghan experience, what would be a book that we should read. And you suggested The Kite Runner, and then we had a discussion over Zoom, and then the Afghans said, well, what book should we read if we want to understand what it is to be an American? And we suggested The Outsiders, which is a famous book that most school children read. And it just started that way. But then what happened is August happened. And when the Taliban took over, everything changed 180 degrees. But this is the thing that changed everything, is that we had made this connection. And it was because of Zoom, this is an ability for us to continue. So it was really important for us. And then my students said, well, while the Taliban might have said that education is not going to be okay for girls, we were doing that. And so it was easy for me to understand that we had this ability now to continue teaching as much as we could. So, and then what happened is that they, while the school had been unfortunately and tragically bombed by Daesh in 2018, there was a reporter who was there, and the reporter did a story on the school and its recovery, considering the changes now the Taliban had taken over. And they were there, or he was there, while we were having a Zoom. So he did a story. What happened is that a teacher from Hong Kong actually read the article and then called me and said, can I participate? So then we had now a school in Hong Kong, a school in the United States, and then we started doing lab lessons. And so we started doing that. I remember my favorite ones is that my students did a DNA extraction in lab in front and live. And my students were able to teach the Afghan students how to do a DNA extraction using fruit and bananas. And so again, it's something that was really special. And over time, what happened is that a private school here in the United States called me up and said, well, during COVID, we enrolled students from China as California students, online students. And if we can do that with Chinese students, why can't we do this with the Afghan girls? And at that moment, that changed everything. So my colleague in Kabul said that he considered his students his flowers. And then my students said, well, then we should call our program Flowers for the Future. And that started how it just started to grow. We were able to get a large grant. We were able to get 150 laptops distributed, enable you to continue your education. And then, as you know, we're able to get a high school diploma. So I think lastly, when it comes to what got me motivated is as an American citizen, I think there's a deep responsibility for us to continue our relationship as much as we can. This for me, it's just who I am, who my parents raised me, is that when you start a relationship, you continue as much as you can. I think it's important, and I have to say that I've learned so much from the Hazara, so much from the Afghan. Your dedication to education, for me as an educator, is your resilience, your bravery, your courage. I could not be more proud to be participating and help you.
Yes, I was saying that I exactly remember the first time when I was coming from Johari to Kabul, and for the first time when I meet you, and I presented a speech, and you wrote my name on your paper, and you told me that I would just introduce you with some other people here. So after that, however, I passed so many challenges, including financially, emotionally. I was far from my family, and I was just, rented a room to stay in Kabul. Under that bad situation, the thing that inspired me was Maud, and then relationship with you, with your student, and with yourself. So let's be somehow specific. If I ask you that what inspired you to support Afghan girls' education, was there any specific experience or moment that led you to take this path?
I think first and foremost, formative in my life was that my father was a Vietnam veteran. And when that war ended, there was a large influx of Vietnamese refugees coming into the United States. And that was when I was just 10 to 12 years old. And it was an impression on me, again, so that what it is to be an American is to be a world citizen, to be a citizen diplomat. And so it was my turn. This was my generation. It was my turn. And as an educator, I had the opportunity to actually have my students who have all these privileges to be able to use their privilege to help others, especially in need. And when it comes to education, there's no one more in need than the Afghan girl. So for me, this was meant to be. It's why I'm here. It's why I do what I do.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, dear professor. So, as the director of Flowers for the Future, so what has been the most impactful or emotional moment for you? And do you have any specific story of a student that deeply moved you?
Well, I would say two. One would be you, but and the opportunity that we had when you spoke at the Wilson Center for Midi Studies in Washington D.C. Your presentation was so profound, and there were many people, many important people in the audience who were moved by what you said. And then I also have to say that my relationship with Fariba at the very beginning, when this was really, I think, probably within a week of August of 21, she wrote me and said, I don't know what to do. My life is over. And I asked her, well, what do you do when you're, under this type of stress? And she said, well, I write poetry. And I said, well, then write me some poetry. And she sent me 88 poems. And then what I did is I took it to Google Translate, and I translated it from Dari to Google English, which is not poetry at all. But I have a student, and I have quite a few students, as a matter of fact, who are Persian. And so she was able to, Persian Americans, and she was able to take the Google Translate and then really translate it into poetry because she was fluent in Farsi. And so she's able to translate it. And we're currently working on getting that book of poetry actually published. And so that's just been a special opportunity. But I have to say, I mean, every Afghan that I've had contact with what is the faculty at the Learning Academy to all the Afghans that I've met, I have been so impressed by their intelligence. I cannot stress you. One more story. I will tell you this one. My students are very, very successful students. They will graduate to some of the best universities, not only in the United States, but in the world. And there was one time where my students it was at 10:30 at night, and we were having discussion on calculus. And the students who were in my room would in the next fall would actually be going to school at Princeton and University of California, Berkeley, some of the best universities in the world. And they were being taught a calculus equation by the Afghan girls that they did not know. So the students who were going to Princeton were being taught by Afghan girls in Kabul. I'm a humanities history teacher, but that was one of the best experiences I've ever seen to know how brilliant these girls are and how important it is for them to finish their education.
Yes, dear professor, when I was in Kabul, so the year that I passed in Kabul was actually amazing for me because I was just, I noticed that how girls were motivated despite of all the problems and challenges. Even boys, however, there are good situation, or we can say opportunities for boys in Afghanistan to go in universities to have job opportunities. But the girls were more, I can say, more motivated than boys. When I saw them in Maud, I was really somehow excited and shocked with the motivation that they had. However, they couldn't go to school, but they wanted to learn their school subjects in Maud Academy, and it was really inspiring for myself too to continue. And I have to say that, believe me, Mr. Timothy, your students, Miss. High Bluff Academy students and also Miss Gildia too. However, you are the families that we ourselves choose you as our families. So sometimes the families are not just blood bond, yes, that we have, but it can be the family that we ourselves choose. And I'm really happy and appreciate the relationship that we have with you. So let me ask you the next question that. Given the restrictions in Afghanistan, especially for girls, how effective do you think online education is? And are there any barriers that you believe is still lack a solution?
Yes, that's a very good question about the effectiveness of online education. First and foremost, I think that this is generationally important. One thing that I found speaking with some of Afghan women who are now in their 30s, the experience they had when the Taliban first were in power, and how the restriction on education of women had an impact because those women gave birth to these men who are now the Taliban. So the fact that we can educate as many women now will have a profound impact on the future of Afghanistan. And I truly do believe that. Online education is now going to be that solution. Um, I really believe that if we can get as much Wi-Fi, as much internet, the infrastructure in Afghanistan, that while there might be restrictions on the girls' physical existence in Afghanistan, but if we can keep them here and keep their intellectual minds alive, then there's a future for Afghanistan. If they are safe at home, but they are taking online classes at home, There's a possibility in the future for them to be the accountants, the bookkeepers, the computer programmers, and then also, and I think it's really going to be important, is to maintain medical training as well.
Yes, thank you so much, dear professor. And actually, I have to say that the computer or the laptop that I have with me is now because of your supports. I have that, and I'm using that. I applied for so many universities. As you know, I got a scholarship from Lynchburg University, and also I was accepted in Global Leadership Fellowship in England. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend on that fellowship, but because of using of that laptop, and I was just I was able to sending emails, and apply for universities. It was really helpful for me, and I do really appreciate that. And other girls in Maud are also nowadays they are using that, and they are so happy with that. So thank you. And then. So, and also I have to say that Mr. Timothy, it's really good that nowadays the girls are studying online classes. As you said, that if we change them intellectually or mentally, so it will be better. Because in some other parts of Afghanistan, maybe you heard that there are women, there are girls that, despite of all these challenges, they are happy. They are happy, and they, for example, accept all these barriers. They are working wearing burqa, for example. They are wearing hijab. They do not have any opportunity to learn, but they are happy with that situation. So that is why, because they are not good or they are not educated mentally and they don't know. So that's why if we learn people online classes, so we can change their mental, and then after that everything will be possible. So the next question that I want to ask you is, what has been the biggest challenge you have faced in supporting Afghan girls, and how have you worked to overcome it?
I think the biggest obstacle has to do with fundraising. I think that what we want to be able to do is, we know that the actual equipment, the computers are in Kabul at the bazaar. It's people are just lacking the funds to purchase and then to maintain the Wi-Fi accounts and so on. So it's incumbent on my organization to raise the funds, to find the grants, and then to be able to get those funds to you. That is a great challenge. And I don't know if you know the news, is that our current administration now is turning their backs, and there's quite. I'll let you know that there's quite a strong pushback from the American citizens to actually bring back this foreign aid, not just Afghanistan, but other places in the world that are in need as well. And so it's important for the citizens like myself to do all that we can to raise the funds to continue to keep the program going. That I think that's the big picture. And the other one is, once we have finished this high school degree, as you say, is to be able to have the funds to actually matriculate to university. That is also a challenge.
Thank you so much. Have you ever faced threats or opposition because of your efforts? And if so, how did you handle them?
So I think that it's important for us to main security, but I think the importance for the Afghans is that that you be prudent, to have the safety protocols. For me, I have people who are colleagues who are surprised and thinking, isn't this dangerous or anything like that. We do have to be cautious, but I think that I guess I'm not letting fear stopping me. I think that the courage that you have shown is empowering for us, and here I am in San Diego, safe. I know what it takes, and I want to be able to help as much as possible and not let fear take over.
Thank you so much. Thank you, dear professor. And the next question is about what is your long-term vision for Flowers for the Future? So, how do you see its role evolving in the coming years?
Well, I have some news I can't fully divulge, but I can say that I'm working with a international organization that will be able to not only continue what we're doing in Kabul, but actually be able to expand and go into other cities and other provinces in Afghanistan. So within the next year or so, in 2025, 2026, will be expecting there to be more branches, not just in Kabul, but in Mazar and so on. So I think that's going to be the goal.
Yes, it was really amazing for me. Thank you so much, dear professor. So you will be able to support more Afghan girls, not only in Kabul, in Mazar, in some other country, in some other parts of Afghanistan. So thank you so much. I am really happy about that. And if I can, so I will also cooperate with you about teaching and some other things. So thank you so much. The next question is what kind of support, financial, political, or social, do you believe is most needed to sustain and expand educational opportunities for Afghan girls?
I think right now, beyond just work on English language instruction, but also mental health and wellness for the girls for their psychology, it's going to be very important as we move forward. And then lastly, I really think that we're going to be other organizations that I'm working with are going to really focus on medical training, on midwifery and nursing and healthcare skills. But I think that no matter what the Taliban say or the plans are, is that if we can train some Afghans in nursing, when they go back to their ancestral villages, they will be the doctors, regardless of what someone's saying. Everyone needs health care. And this is something that I see that in the near future is something that we'll be really pushing.
Yes, exactly. And one of Miss Gildioto advised me the same as you told me, and that's why when I was in literature class and Miss Ellen Sullivan was our teacher, so she told us that you try to write an essay. So I started to write an essay about. The title was healthcare access in Afghanistan and United States. So I just searched, and then I found it critical information about healthcare access, the differences in Afghanistan and the United States. So what are the barriers and how people have access? So what things are impacted the healthcare access in Afghanistan and also in the United States? So after that, I just published my essay in Avicenna University in Kabul. So actually, healthcare is also important, as you said, beyond of the political situation, so the people, the girls can use that. Okay, so the last question that I want to ask you, Mr. Professor, is how can the international community, especially schools and organizations in the United States, better support Afghan students? How can do them?
I think, well, one is the online education is really going to be the future. Flowers for the Future belongs to the Alliance for the Education of Women in Afghanistan, and its website is www.aewa.org.af. And it's a consortium or an alliance of over 50 different NGOs who are providing education for Afghan girls all over Afghanistan. And so this is going to be, hopefully, what we could be created is potentially with Afghans in exile, a Ministry of Education in exile, where we could actually.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and experiences. Your dedication to Afghan girls' education is truly inspiring for me and for all the people. And I hope that through conversations like this, we can bring more attention to the urgent need for support. So before we conclude, is there any final message you want to share with Afghan students, educators, or the global community who might benefit listening to our interview.
Yes, the one thing I would say is to never give up. Absolutely never give up. Keep on striving, keep on learning. And then one thing to always is that they cannot take your mind. You own it. That is yours. It is part of your soul. And I am so proud of all of you. Tashakor.
Thank you so much, dear professor. It was really a nice start for my whole day, for my whole life, and talking with you, and for all the people in San Diego. You're my family, and talking with you all the time, just inspiring me to continue and to pass the challenges. So once again, I appreciate your time and all that you do. I look forward to seeing Flowers for the Future grow and continue making a difference. Thank you so much.